Hey y'all, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Sydney?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. So Tim, I meant to tell you the other day that you need to stop losing weight. You're looking like you're sick.
Dude,
Is that the idea?
this is a goal. All right. I have to get down to like 7% body fat, and then I'm going to start bulking. So that's just one of my goals, man.
So I know I don't look like it now, but in college, my Uncle Rico days, right? Um, I actually got down below 2%. And so during the middle of fall practice, they would not let me do any conditioning. Instead of running, they had a coach walk me to the calf and he would serve me food. He would go fill up like 3 plates of food
That's awesome.
and say, you got to eat, you got to eat. So, nowhere near that now. So
I didn't even know 2% body fat was even possible.
That's insane. Yeah.
it is, it's apparently not very healthy. Basically what it came down to is I wasn't drinking enough water. I mean, that's basically what it came down to. So, but yeah, about a week of that, a strength and conditioning coach walking you to the calf, making you fill up, it'll put some weight on you. So,
Was that so? You weren't even trying. It was just accidental due to your activity level and what you were eating and drinking.
yeah, well, I mean, you're in college, you don't eat the best anyway. You're
Yeah.
on ramen noodle and water or Coke or whatever, and then we would have 2-hour workouts in the morning, go to class. Then we would have 3 hours of practice in the afternoon in the heat of August.
Yeah.
You don't have to try very hard. I mean, you've got to go through the motions and go through the process, but
Yeah.
you're wearing 40 pounds of gear and yeah, it's, I would die if I had to do that now. So
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't jump into it. It's baby steps.
It is baby steps. Yeah, I'm baby stepping it right now. I'm doing my preferred workout for men over 40, and I'm sore from it. So that's where that is.
Yeah, man.
I love that y'all both have the shirts on. That you're representing. That's awesome.
Represent.
I love wearing this shirt, dude.
It's a comfy shirt. I like it.
Yeah, for real.
Um,
It is.
I would have one on as well, but I know we're gonna run up on time, and I got to scoot to the office because we got a fun day of training ahead. So
Let's do this.
but yeah, so I want to get rid of all distractions first. I'm already recording. I'll cut out and edit as a little bit. I don't do a whole lot of that just to keep it authentic, right? I'll cut this part out where I'm talking about. I don't do a whole lot of editing.
Yeah, it's
But
good.
basically, it's just like us having coffee, right? If we're sitting down and we're having a virtual cup of coffee, which Sydney, it looks like you're going to have something more than coffee. What's behind you over there? Is that some
Oh,
wine glasses, champagne glasses?
yeah.
What is that? Okay.
Yeah.
All
A
right.
little mini bar. Does that look weird? Is that distracting?
No, I was going
Okay.
to say cheers. That's
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah.
all right. So, and I'll do, Tim, I know you pretty well. I'll do your intro. Sydney, I'll need to get something from you
Okay.
for just a personal bio because I'll record that later. I won't spend our time doing that. But basically, I want to, as we start this, which I'm going to say we're going to start it now, kind of establish, or not kind of, let's establish, we're here to talk about mobile home parks, right?
Right.
Which is a big ask. So now when people come into the Facebook group, which is almost 5,500 members, which is incredible from being a year within inception, is that there's a lot of requests. There's 2 questions I ask. One is it's just a shameless plug for the podcast and ask them to rate and review it. But the other one is, what do you want to hear on the podcast? And I get a lot of questions of mobile home parks. I want to know about that. So knowing that you guys focus on that, first I want to establish credibility on why you guys are, or excuse me, you guy and gal are the subject matter experts on it. Because I keep seeing these things, and I know y'all both are involved in active duty passive income, so we'll talk about that a little bit. But what makes you the subject matter expert, right? As far as what's your experience so far? And Tim, so we'll start with you. So give me a little bit of background. I know I know, but for the listening audience, and you and I haven't actually caught up and talked a whole lot about what you've been had going on here recently. But what, from a mobile home park standpoint, what is your experience?
Yeah. So, I guess the first mobile home park deal was a deal that Jay and I got under contract. And it was Creola, man. That was my first involvement in a mobile home park.
Okay.
So not far from where Jay and I are at. And, Jay and I are like 20 minutes away from each other right now. I'm in Pensacola. He's right down the street in Gulf Breeze, Florida. And we were looking at mobile home parks together as a deal to take down. And so that one it's a pretty small park. It was zoned for 27 spaces. There were only 11 developed spaces. And that one was in just north of Mobile, Alabama, a city called Creola, Alabama. Definitely
Creola.
a tertiary, yeah, Creola, and definitely a tertiary market outside of Mobile. And yeah, so that one I actually partnered with a couple guys. We just paid for it. We didn't have to like raise capital or use any kind of bank financing. We just bought it, and that's about to actually get sold. We repositioned it. There was a lot of headaches that had to do with the city. Luckily, through the reposition process, we learned the importance of building a relationship with City Hall, with the economic development, with the city inspector, especially in a small city where there are a number of mobile home parks where the other owners are slumlords. And so they just, without us going to them prior to closing, they just assumed we were another couple slumlords. And so they were kind of hard on us at first until they got to know us and our vision and what we actually our plans were. And that was just to add value to their community, get out and evict the people who were not following the rules and who were not adding value to the community, and to get in there and bring nicer homes in there and get it nice and full and accommodate better tenants. So that was one. We're about to sell that. That should be a pretty nice return. And then I helped raise capital and helped put together a 75 space park up in Indiana with actually the two same partners, both military guys here in the area. And that one was actually going really well. It is being managed by a third-party company up in Indiana. It's just outside of Gary, actually in Calumet Township, Indiana. And the biggest value-add component on that one was the owner was paying for water, even though it was sub-metered. So it was all sub-metered, but the owner was paying for all the water, which was great, which was huge. And we ended up getting bank financing. Two lenders assured us that they would lend us capital, and then about 15 days before closing, they both backed out. And because one of them didn't afford
a word for a reason. I hate fucking banks.
Yeah. One of them didn't know mobile home parks, and that is a huge lesson learned. Ensure when you're trying to go get financing on mobile home communities, the bank either understands mobile home parks or already has a bunch of mobile home parks in their portfolio and they have experience with them. Yep. Because banks that know mobile home parks love them. Banks that don't know mobile home parks are scared of them.
Yeah.
And so that they both backed out. Then all of a sudden, like within about, less than 14 days closing, we had to raise that all cash. So we pretty much did that. Luckily, the three of us, we just all kind of got our heads together and we syndicated the deal, and we were able to get that thing closed out. And then, since then it was just, we were just looking at a bunch of deals, had a couple deals under contract, didn't work out. And, at this point now, managing partner of ADPI Capital. I don't know if you want me to talk about what ADPI is. I could do that later, but ADPI Capital is just the same guys who run active duty passive income. Now we're taking deals down together, and we brought Sydney on as part of a team, and her and I are spearheading the mobile home park component of ADPI Capital. And now we actually just signed a contract on a 154 space park up in Illinois. And I was looking in my emails to see if the seller, like last night, he looked at it and sold it, but we don't have an email back yet. So Sydney and I both signed it yesterday. We're just waiting for him to sell it. Then we'll officially have it under contract, hopefully today this morning at some point.
Nice. Where is it at?
Eureka, Illinois.
Yeah. It's outside of Peoria. It's a major secondary market outside of Peoria, Illinois, which is a major metro outside of Chicago.
Yeah. Isn't that where? Oh man, I was going to try to be witty.
What?
Is it Eureka? Isn't that where Wayne's World was from? Isn't that where they're from?
I don't know.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to look it up now.
Google
magic. All right. So, Tim, is that it? I mean, that's only 100 I mean, that's, a couple hundred spaces. What I would like to do, if that's all you have, I mean, come on, Sydney, what is your experience so far, and how did you get linked up with the ADPI guys? Are you currently serving? Have you served before, or you just involved because they're doing great work?
Yeah, so I'll tell you how I got started, and then how I linked up with Tim and ADPI. So I've spent my whole career in finance and accounting. Started out my career in financial reporting, financial analysis. Did that for about 7 years, and then I transitioned over to the world of being a controller. So a corporate controller. It's what I currently do now for an IT company. It's my W-2 job.
Nice. Actually, I know, I don't know why I asked this question, because I think your company is a client of ours. We can talk about that offline, but I think so. But anyway, I looked up yesterday, trying to prep a little bit for this. As you can tell, I'm not as prepared as I want to be, but I think you're a customer, so which is pretty cool. So we'll chat about that also.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah. So my whole career has been analysis, looking at numbers, controlling numbers. And last November, I went to plug for Rod Cleave's boot camp. It was amazing. And I knew I wanted to get started in multifamily real estate investing. I just wasn't sure, exactly where to plug in. So that was kind of the game changer for me. And I just decided that I was going to focus on one asset class and become the expert on that one particular asset class. Because, a lot of people in this industry in real estate, it's like the shiny penny syndrome, where like there's the flips and, there's the wholesaling, and there's just so many different things to get into. And so I just picked one thing to focus on. And I did the Mobile Home University course through Frank and Dave, which is amazing. It was really, really helpful. I learned a lot. And so basically since then, I've just been living, breathing mobile home parks. I do nothing but talk about mobile home parks. Pretty much every day I'm looking at deals or analyzing deals. So I've been doing that since, probably about 6 months. And me and Tim got hooked up through a mutual friend, Mitch Durfee. Thanks, Mitch. He connected us too, because he knew both of us were in the mobile home state of mind. And me and Tim just kind of hit it off and just started working together. And at some point, Tim's connection with ADPI, he just decided, hey, we need a mobile home park arm of ADPI. So decided to bring me on the team and help take down deals.
Awesome. So full disclosure, Tim and I are partners on another deal. And I know if you have that experience being analytical, that is a strong suit you bring that Tim does not have.
Yeah.
Know your strengths, right? So
I'm proud of that. I like promoting it too, because it's like a lot of people think that they need to be a numbers guru and they need to know like how to be super analytical when they're analyzing.
Yeah.
And that was for me at first. I was like, I know numbers well enough to know what the important things are in a deal, whether to figure out whether a deal's good or not, and like the red flags in terms of numbers. But my brain isn't programmed definitely like Sydney's and not like Jay's. They're the left brain, analytical, data driven. They're good at being in the office and crunching the numbers. And that's not what I choose to do. I'd rather do pretty much the other piece. Absolutely. And so yeah, I mean, I learned that with Jay, and we talked about that on Bigger Pockets, and that's why one of the reasons why me and Sydney work really well together.
Yeah.
It's important to partner up with someone that's better than you at things you're not good at. So, Tim's, got the personality. He's the capital raiser. So he's a lot better than me at some stuff. So we're able to really sync up together, and with our forces combined, take out the mobile home parks.
I would definitely agree. You and I are a lot alike in that area, where Tim is not afraid to have a conversation with anybody. I feel like I've got to check a few boxes and get prepared before I go even.
Oh yeah.
Hello,
I got to make sure, I got to put it in Excel and make sure it makes sense before I say anything.
I'm working on it though. I'm working on it. There's I forget where I picked this quote up, but it's progress over perfection, right? Or progress is greater than perfection. And every chance I get, especially at my W-2, I try to incorporate that, because I manage, there's a lot of folks that, now we're going through a transitional period at that job, but they just want to be perfect. I'm like, it's not about being perfect. I'm preaching to the choir here, right? So I'm preaching to myself when I tell you this, but I just need you to take a step forward, right? And just try it out. So maybe you and I can work on that together. If you find a pointer
fire aim.
Yeah, that's it. That book was helped me understand that a lot. And I forget, is it Faircloth? Who wrote that? Ready, Fire, Aim is the book.
I never read a book. That's just kind of the way of life.
Oh, well, so there is actually a book. It's called Ready, Fire, Aim. And it's really, it's good because it breaks down businesses as you grow. And it breaks it down by revenue size, I think. It's been a couple of years and a couple of kids since I've listened to it. But it basically breaks it down. Hey, if you're in revenue bucket A, here's kind of what you're going to focus on. And it goes through this whole ready, fire, aim, where you just take a shot and then figure out where you need to readjust and take another shot and readjust. So it's I
need to read that. I'll probably be like, yep, I already do that.
Yeah.
Yep. Do that.
You might read it and think, I think I co-authored this book.
Yeah. Cool, man. I'm adding it to the list.
All right. I'll make a link to it in the show notes. So Tim, back to you for a minute. So you mentioned on the Creola Park that building a relationship with the city inspector is important. What have y'all found out about that, and how would you go about doing that? Because my experience with city inspectors, they're some hard asses, right? And I found that this is where one of those just shut up and listen, which I'm really good at, is that comes into play very good. I mean, it's when a city inspector has come on to one of my properties, I get real quiet and I just sit there, because in the past I've opened my mouth and tried to convince him that I was doing the right thing, and it just kind of blew up. So what did you mean by building a relationship with a city inspector when it comes to specifically mobile home parks? And I guess one of the things you said was headaches. What were some of those headaches that y'all ran into? Because you're right. I've heard of, I own a few mobile homes. Matter of fact, I'm putting 2 up for sale today, but I don't have any in a park, right? So I know parks tend to have a bad rap, or kind of the perception is they have a bad rap. But what kind of headaches did y'all run into with Creola? And I was going to say, I don't remember why I backed out of that, but I think it was a financial situation for me. Anyway,
the price point we got it at was crazy, and I'm surprised that you backed out of it. But there was just, if you recall, it was the way we acquired it, and essentially the promises that were made to include with the acquisition. So really quick, if this is a park that was initially purchased by a much larger private investor, who right down the street, there were 2 massive parks that totaled about 200 spaces. And they scooped up this other park just because they were going to completely reposition these other two parks. And the plan was to put all new homes in those two parks. And so the nicer homes left over, we're going to go into this park, this other park in Creola that we ended up buying. So like with that deal, it was like that was going to be a place where all the salvageable homes will be deposited into. Like, it's like, if you buy this park, you'll get all these other homes and you'll have it all completely full. All 27 spaces will be full. So that was one of the reasons why I thought it was great at the price point. I'm like, look, we can get it fully occupied at this price point. We'll have to probably pay for some of the moves or whatever. But is it kind of coming back?
Yeah. So there was two, and you didn't get distracted when I was doing my little dance over here, but there was there was two parks, right, that these developers purchased, or they actually bought all three, right? Is that right? And their idea was they're going to take the two larger parks, move those folks out, because if I remember correctly, they were maybe a mile or two or five within each other.
They were all within like a mile radius.
Okay. So they're going to take the really good homes, the better homes out of these two bigger parks, migrate those into that 27 one that you guys ended up acquiring. Absolutely. That was originally the idea, right? And then they were going to redevelop those other two as something completely else. So I do remember that. Yeah. All right. It's coming back to me. Coffee's good.
Yeah. So kind of like some of the headaches and the importance of the relationship with the city inspector, we kind of just, we closed it without really building a relationship with the city or talking to the city or informing the city what our plans were. And we kind of just executed. And
do you think that's normal though with mobile home parks? Are you guys finding that's normal, that you need to be having an in with the city inspector and say, look, we want to buy this mobile home park. What is your thoughts or processes on the park itself, or how we can become a contributor, not an eyesore for the community? Is that something that you guys do going forward, or would like to do going forward?
Yeah, so that's definitely a step in our due diligence process, is to make sure the city is aware of exactly what we're doing and our intentions.
Okay.
If they don't know you, they're not gonna really. They'll it's like a fear of the unknown. They're like, well, what are these guys gonna do? What are their plans? Are they slumlords? Regardless of the market or the number of pads, right? So, I mean, we'll be doing this one in Eureka, and by the way, Wayne's World was Aurora.
That's it.
And
thank you.
I'm from just outside of Chicago, so I'm like, I would have remembered if it was Eureka, but I couldn't remember for sure.
Let's get the clarity on the important stuff, okay? Where was Wayne's World located?
Aurora. Just so everybody, I know everybody was on the edge of their seats waiting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim, and Google.
So, contacting the city, first, economic development, and you and I in our apartment complex. Imagine what, if we never built a relationship with Krista, who was in the economic development office. True. And initially she, after a lot of back and forth trying to figure out our property management, she now is managing our park because she happened to be a real estate agent and has property management experience. But anyway.
Let's give her proper due diligence. She's not just an agent. She's a broker.
Yeah, she's a broker. And she's great. She is she is doing everything for our apartment complex right now in that market.
Yeah. And come to think, I'm glad you brought that up, because I wasn't even thinking this, but me and you and Jeremy went up and presented to the city council as we became new owners, and they fired some questions at us and stuff like that. But I think that helped. Now it didn't necessarily help with the inspector bit. He's his own but he's wanting us to get certain things up to code that we weren't planning on, and that sort of thing. So it's good, as you said on Saturday, for safety reasons.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
I'm shaking my head.
There is that fear of well, what is he going to make me do? What are they going to try to, are there going to be any codes that I don't know that are violated that we're going to have to bring up to code, and are we going to have the money for that? So that's the type of thing that I would just rather get it out in the open.
Yeah.
Just talk about it. Make sure he or she knows exactly what our intentions are. that we're ethical individuals, that we only want to bring value to this community, that we only want to help the residents. And that's like really the most important piece is when we want to talk to City Hall, and for the city so small, like the one in Creola, I mean, we have a personal relationship with the city inspector, even a personal relationship with the mayor of the city. And like, obviously the bigger the city, it's probably like the mayor probably won't get directly involved, but the mayor was at the meeting with us, and the mayor came out to the park after we bought it in Creola, and we all met him. And so them like seeing us and meeting us it just gave them a peace of mind, knowing that we have good intentions.
Yeah.
And so that's really the importance of just giving them, like, don't leave it up to them guessing about how we're going to operate and how we're going to put a footprint in their city. Just let them know, this is our plan. This is what we intend to do. We are here to help, grow your city in a good way.
Yeah.
So that was that. And I think the biggest problem arose, like, we kind of did not do that until we started doing business. And the part of the deal was those other trailers in those other parks, they actually paid to move a bunch of them. So they moved a bunch of them without consulting the city. And in Creola, you have to request permission from the city and pay a fee in order to move trailers. And they didn't do that, and they brought them over, and the ones that they brought over were kind of dumpy, not ones that we would have wanted. We had a property manager at the time on scene kind of coordinating it, and he's no longer our manager. We ended up firing him for all kinds of other stuff. But we kind of let it up to him, and that was our fault for not being on scene and watching the moves. That's where we dropped the ball on that part too. So then the city inspector's like, why are you bringing these crappy homes? Now you're going to inherit bad tenants, and it's only going to be bad and this and that. So then that we had to like stop all that. One of the homes that were coming in that we could have rehabbed ended up going to the dump, and it was no longer up to code. And that was probably the biggest headache, them really saying, you cannot pull any more parks into this home until you talk to City Hall, until you pay the fees. And then that's when,
the process.
Yeah. From there, we had to go through a couple obstacles, but then they knew who we were. We knew the policies in the city. We followed them from that point forward. We got a new manager. We kind of, from that point forward, now we're at the point where we're about to sell it because it's fully repositioned and it'll be nice, profitable. But that's one of the reasons, and for the reason we mentioned earlier with the apartment complex, the importance of building a relationship with the city, them just knowing what your intentions are. And now it's almost part of the SOP for our due diligence process at this point.
So it's been a good learning experience, right? So Sydney has been waiting very patiently. I've just been chatting, right? So she's been sitting there smiling, just. But so Sydney, what are some of the things that you look at from an analytical standpoint on a mobile home park, right? And I know just a little, right? Because I've looked at a couple with Kim. You're Kim from now on, okay, Tim?
Yeah.
I'll take it.
It's early, man. It's not that early, actually.
Not that early.
It's just been a rough month. Sydney, you have kids, right?
I do. I've got 2 almost 8-year-olds.
Yeah. So eventually Tim's going to figure out what I mean by this, but it's I've got a 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and a 1-month-old. So
Yeah, me and Tim will be on Zoom calls, and my kids will be running through the background, and he'll hear me yelling out crazy stuff. He probably thinks I'm like a crazy parent. I'm like, stay out of the road, get the squirrel out of the house.
If you ever just, like, I started documenting the conversations that I have with my kids, and they're just hilarious. And I've figured out, with my 2-year-old daughter, it's don't eat that. That's not food. Stop licking that. It's just, the
stuff you say is just insane. You're like, wow, I can't believe I just said that. Like,
yeah.
Stop slapping my sandwich. I said that. I mean, just crazy stuff.
But they're awesome. Anyway, so analysis on a mobile home park. What are the key metrics that you look at, and what kind of criteria are you looking at? Is there a certain size, or is there a certain rent? I know when I looked at them before, we were looking at making sure, the ideal situation was you own the land, and that's it, right? You lease everything back to the tenant, or the tenant has their own home, and then city water and city sewer were sub-metered city water and city
Right.
sewer. And those were the main things that we were looking for. Is that kind of what y'all dove into as an ideal situation? And how far do you veer off of that when you're looking for new
Yeah.
opportunities?
So what we're looking for is we're pretty much focused in the Southeast and the Midwest. And we're looking for parks generally that kind of are within like a 70 pad to 200 pad size.
Okay.
We will veer off a little bit if it makes sense. But I think the biggest thing that I start with first is, what is the play? If it's, we're not really interested in fully stabilized parks where, you're going to basically buy it at a really low cap rate and make small returns. We want a play where there's, where the lot rent is under market, or the utilities are not being billed back. There's got to be something there to work with. So if that's not there, I mean, we pass.
Yeah.
We're just
So
not interested in that.
you're looking for a value add.
Always.
Meat on the bone.
Meat on the bone. That's right.
So
there's got to be something.
Yeah. So why is that 75 to 200 space? Why is that your sweet spot?
I mean, it takes so much time to go through, the LOI, the contract, the attorney, the due diligence, the financing, the money, the capital raise. There's so many pieces that have to happen. We don't want to do that for a tiny park.
Yeah.
And, we have looked at some parks that are bigger, but I think right now we just feel comfortable in that size. We know we can raise the capital for that size. We know we can take it down. I mean, at some point, probably pretty soon, we'll look at bigger stuff.
Expand past that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And again, that 4-letter word bank, I've had a lot of conversations with those guys this year. And I shouldn't say all banks. I actually have one banker, and going back to the relationship piece that Tim mentioned earlier, I've had that relationship with them for almost a decade now, and they are extremely responsive. And so whenever I curse about banks, it's not about them. They just don't do everything that I want them to do. Right. So I have to go and struggle with finding somebody else, but it's about building those relationships. And when I've talked to banks this year, I've looked at some bigger deals, and what they basically came back and told me is, look, in order for us to close a loan on 500,000, it's the same effort as if we're closing $1 million or $2 million. So we're not going to entertain those. I mean, it's not, $500,000 loans, because it's not worth it to us. And I'm sitting here thinking, wow, I'm not it's incredible to me, but I get it. I'm just a little butthurt because they don't want my business, and I think it'd be a good fit. But anyway.
And, that's why we love seller financing. And
Yes.
What's so great about mobile home parks is a lot of them that you find are the mom and pop owners that, that you can talk to them about the benefits of seller financing, and both parties win. They win from a tax perspective and from being able to keep their investment something that's earning money. And, the investors win because the cash on cash return is great. You eliminate the need for all the, the banks and all the compliance and regulatory costs and unnecessary time. So it's really a win-win for both.
And this may be a Tim question, but because I struggle with it, and so Sydney, I'm going to assume you struggle with it too. But when you find a seller who's in a position to do seller financing, how do you convince them to do that? Because I've run into some, especially if the park is represented by a realtor. I was successful this past week at convincing a seller to seller finance me his car wash, and then he gave me the numbers. I'm like, okay, no, I'm not doing that. But all along that conversation, the realtor who is representing him, he won't seller finance. There's no way. He's already turned down this offer, blah, blah, blah. And I just kept chipping away at him. And he finally said, yeah, I'll do it. But then the numbers didn't look great. So what are some of the things, Tim, you've found that help move that conversation along? Because we were we tried that with our apartment complex in Centronell, and old Andy was not interested. What have you found that works, right, to convince owners, hey, this is a good thing? And I think Sydney mentioned, I mean, obviously they're still motivated by money, right? And Sydney mentioned, hey, there's some tax benefits and things of that nature. You're going to still get a lot better ROI than you would if you just took that money and put it in the bank somewhere. But what are some of the things that you've found that work to at least get the conversation going, not only with the owner, but with the realtor or broker that's representing that owner?
I'll say a couple things, and then I want Sydney to share. We have another park that she secured owner financing on with the owner. So here's my 2 cents. I think one, you have
Sorry, I didn't mean to offend you, Sydney.
No, yeah.
I just know I'm not good at it, and our analytical types.
You're not good at it yet.
That very good rephrase. Thank you.
This is all I heard. I'm not good at it.
That's fair.
Woe is me. All right, figure it out. Here we go. Moving on. So, you have to get to know the seller and like, what are their goals? Be interested in what they're trying to accomplish out of the transaction. Like, if they have an idea of what seller financing is and they know that there are some kind of benefits, maybe you just have to educate them on what those benefits are. Like, look, these are the tax advantages. This is, you could have residual income. And like, sometimes you just have to educate them. The thing that we found is we like using options. If you create 2 or 3 different options for the seller to choose, that all the numbers work for us, and then like whatever works more for them, like, look, how about 10% down with this interest rate? If not, 15% down, more cash with a lower interest rate, or maybe 20% down, more cash with maybe a lower interest rate. So what do they want? Do they want more cash to pay for, something that they're looking for, or maybe they want to buy something, or maybe they want to transition that cash into another property? So you won't know unless you really try to get them to try to tell you how much they want. Like, we went back and forth with this particular situation. Like, we got to figure out what is in her head, how much she wants down, and then we'll structure it to that, and then we'll do some financing that works for both of us. So getting to know their goals, maybe possibly setting up a couple different options. And I think if they don't already kind of know, like, it's going to be hard to convince them from scratch. If they don't know anything about seller financing, if they don't know that there are some kind of benefits, it's going to be tough to literally convince them to do this kind of financing unless you have some really good rapport, which is, I think, what Sydney ended up building with this other one. So those are kind of my 2 cents. But Sydney, why don't you talk about how you secured that with Loretta?
Yeah.
So Tim is absolutely right. Seller bonding is so important, and it's the number one thing you have to do before you have that conversation. So getting to know what they want to do. So in the case of Loretta, she had been.
I love the name, by the way.
I know, I do too. She's such a sweet lady. Her story was she had been in the park, I think, was it 45 years, Tim? I mean, it was a long time. And she was ready to move on with her life. And, she's late 70s, early 80s. She didn't want to be doing this anymore. So trying to understand where she's at. She wants to move and buy a little house down by the lake, with her garden. So just trying to understand that. And then we're structuring a deal where we can give her enough money to go off and do, buy her little house down by the lake, and still give her a monthly income that gives her something. So she's doing no work and she's still got something coming in. And then you've got the tax advantages of structuring it that way.
Nice. Yeah.
And then, the other thing that I would highlight when you're talking to sellers about potentially doing the seller financing is they're already comfortable with the asset. They already understand what the asset is doing. And so it's not a risk. It's not as risky for them because they already understand how the property works and where the money comes from. You're not teaching somebody, about mobile home parks from scratch or whatever the asset may be. So that it makes it a better conversation, and I like to highlight that too. So yeah, that's our seller financing, and a lot of mobile home park owners in particular, we find are older, and older people like face to face.
Yes. Yes.
And that's difficult being a millennial, because I'm like, text, Facebook, Snapchat.
Does Loretta even have a cell phone that accepts text messages? Does she have a cell phone? Let's put it that way.
I know, because when I call her, I have to leave messages on the answering machine.
we had to physically mail her the contract.
No way. Nice.
Yeah, she said her internets were down.
Her internet.
So I was like, well, I'm just going to mail you something, and nice handwritten letter. Just make sure you know who you're dealing with. It's an older generation. They value different ways of communication, so always meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And then the park in Illinois that we're looking at, same deal. Older guy, doesn't want to do seller financing, but he wants to meet us. So it's something that we're making a priority when we're dealing with older sellers, is go see them face to face and create that bonding so that you can have a good relationship. Because in the case of the Illinois park, he still may be involved with helping us do some dev work. So we want that good relationship with him.
He's going to live 2 miles down the road from there. And there is some redevelopment type of stuff, pouring pads to finish 23 pads. All I have to do, the concrete slab has to be poured, and then they'll be ready to accommodate homes. Everything else is good to go. And he is like, he wants to be the one to do it because he can do it at a really low cost. So we might take advantage of that down the road. Once we close and we're like, look, we look at other options, and I think that's probably going to be unbeatable what he could pour them for. And that's what he does. He either knows people or enjoys doing it himself. Yeah. But I think that rapport is really important. And especially now, state of the market, where a lot of people, there's more competition and higher, lower cap rates. A lot more people, even looking at the mobile home park space, which is one of the biggest benefits, is less competition. Less investors are going after these assets compared to apartment complexes. So now our one of our literally routine SOP tasks when we submit an offer, it's just standard for us to submit. We don't even waste our time with an LOI. We just go right for the contract. Okay. And then we send a video of the founder of ADPI, Markion. He sends a personalized video. Hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is why you should choose us, basically.
Nice.
And then we also send a proof of funds.
On VHS.
What's that?
Do you send the video on VHS?
The YouTube link. So hopefully the broker could just be like, hey, watch my phone, or, let's go to my laptop. The seller doesn't have access. But anyway, so we send the video. We go straight to the PSA. And then we also have a proof of funds from our institutional mortgage broker, who basically just personalized for each deal. He's like, the ADPI capital team has this much in liquidity net worth. They're approved for a loan to easily cover the debt on this. No problem. Right. Yeah. And then we also have a credibility book, which is just like a 7 or 8 page PDF this is our mission. This is what ADPI is all about. These are our bios and our credibility based on the real estate that we've already done as a team. Yeah. And that's just our standard practice for every offer that we submit. That's just what we do. And that's voted very well for us.
Yeah. And what's great about the credibility book is it really highlights the mission. And that's really been super important for the sellers. Like, sometimes it's not necessarily just about the price, especially when you're dealing with older people. They want to know who they're selling to, because the park or the property is their baby. Yeah. And so they really connect with, your mission is to help military families. I was in the military. That speaks to them. So it's, I would suggest, that people create a mission, like, what is your mission? And really push that out there.
I think that helped with Loretta.
Did it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
She was
really
in the
think.
Air Force, and
Okay.
she was a military family, and then
Yeah.
we sent her our credibility book, and she realized we're all military. And I think that probably, and I think she bought it from a military family, like
Yeah.
initially.
It's
And
been
so
in
she's
the,
like,
it's
it'd be great
been,
to,
yeah,
yeah.
it's been military owned ever since it was created. And
Yeah.
she loves the idea of it continuing to be military owned. So you just never know what people
Yeah.
will connect with.
Well, I think that's one competitive advantage that y'all have versus if I were to go put my own group together, it's focused on mobile home parks. I know if I came up against y'all in a mobile home park situation, uh, you know, I would more than likely guess that the owner is going to go with ADPI, but which I love the name. I have a little problem with passive income because I don't think anything's really passive, but I totally get where you're going with that. That's a conversation for a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But that was horrible. I just bashed the name. That's bad. Anyway, I'll make up that
Rookie.
out. It is, but no, I love the name and what y'all put together. And I got to talk to Eric Upchurch, which he does really look like Michael Bublé.
Yeah, he kind of does.
Totally does.
But what
I don't
y'all
actually. I
put
still haven't met him or Markion, the founder.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I hooked him up with Ryan Mickler, and I think they're gonna have a little chat. So maybe something coming down the road for that. But
It's huge.
I love what you guys are doing. I think the sellers can see that, and it's definitely a competitive advantage that ADPI has over just me or a group I would put together. I mean, who doesn't want to help out veterans? One question. Well, so the next question, Sydney, I want to talk to you since you're the numbers person. A lot of times with these, at least my limited experience with these older owners, is they don't keep very good records, right? So
Right.
at least one scenario I will give you is an owner drew out their mobile home park on the back of on a piece of paper, 8.5 by 11 sheet, and put how much rents were for each one. And that was the financial information they gave me. And I was like, well, while I trust this, the bank's going to want to verify it, right? And I'm going to want to verify it too, but there's no way I'm going to get a loan based off this 8.5 by 11 piece of paper you just gave me. You're not willing to owner finance. How can I get better financials from you? Will your CPA connect me? They were dealing with a bunch of cash stuff and weren't reporting everything anyway. Come to find out. So how do you get past that? I'm assuming you've run into that as much as you've analyzed. How do you get past that? And what are the minimum numbers that you have to properly analyze a mobile home park?
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, I definitely run into that all the time. And,
which, by the way, I hope one day that with my investments, I'm the same way. I'm just worried about cash coming in. I don't care what I report,
right.
and if some young whippersnapper millennial wants to come grab it up from me, they're going to, here's what I got. Either you trust me or you don't,
Yeah.
Anyway, how do you battle that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a challenge, but I also see it as an opportunity because if they have bad records, it really opens up that conversation for seller financing. Hey, how are we going to get a bank loan if we don't have good records? How are we going to do the audit? So I mean, honestly, it really creates opportunity in my mind. But to answer your question, I mean, you have to take what they give you when you're in the analysis offer stage, and then you just I'll look at aerial maps. I'll look at their handwritten maps on the back of a napkin. I mean, you just take everything that you can based off the information that you have and, plug it into this, using the same analyzer. I'm going to plug David Tupin because he's my bro. I use his analyzer, David Tupin. Yeah.
Okay.
So I use his analyzer. And so I'm looking at it in the same format every time. So I kind of know, hey, this park is city water, city sewer, so it's going to be this expense ratio. Or, it's got I'll park on home, so it's going to be this expense ratio. So I'll run through the numbers, and if the numbers look good, and we're really focused a lot on cash returns, is if the numbers look good, then we would go through the offer stage where you would hash out, are the numbers really what they are?
Mm.
And I've been through audits my entire career. I know how to audit. You can't hide the money. I mean,
Yeah.
unless they're getting cash payments, which
Yeah.
that's not very unusual.
No.
You can't hide the money. I mean, you're going to be able to figure it out through bank statements, and then just piecing together tax returns, and you can piece it together and figure it out. And if they messed it up, which they could have, that gives you an opportunity to renegotiate.
Yeah. And how is the conversation, how does the conversation usually go with trying to get somebody's tax returns, right? I found that with the older generation, is that they don't want to hand over what we consider just proper due diligence, right? Is if it's a single family or single member LLC, or if the park's in their personal name, then they're reporting that on their my mind just went completely blank. I'm so sorry.
Their K-1?
Well, their K-1 or their normal tax return, right? And they don't necessarily, sometimes they don't want to reveal all of that information. So at least have you run into that before?
Yeah, I mean, people don't want you.
They just want to hand out, their financial information or historical financial information just on a whim. How do you get past that? And what's the conversation usually look like? Is it because y'all come with that strong offer letter, or, here's a contract, here's an offer, here's our credibility book? Is that kind of the secret to the sauce a little bit?
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to plug in my laptop. I mean, I guess it just kind of depends. Like if they've got poor records, I mean, at some point you're just going to say, look, deal or no deal. Like this is something that we would have to see to do proper due diligence. Here's the reasons why it would be safe for you to give me your tax return. I honestly haven't ran into that situation yet.
Okay.
But I mean, I guess it comes down to deal or no deal.
Yeah.
It's not unusual to provide tax returns. I think that's important, is just to make them understand that it's not an unusual request to do that, and it's safe to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, just to make sure your audience is clear, the tax returns are going to show as the lowest amount of income possible.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. And we want to see that. We want to see what you're showing, because that's what our offer is going to be based on.
Yeah.
But when they're trying to prove that they have higher income to us, because that's how you value the commercial property, I'm just making sure I'm going to dumb it down to people like me that are listening that can understand this stuff.
Yeah. So, hey, I was at work the other day, earlier this week, and I said, hey, explain that to me like I'm a fifth grader. And because it was one of those things that just, yes, Tim, there are things that go over my head. You're right.
Trust me, I know.
Nice. That was good stuff. All right. So we're running up on time. I've got to get to the W-2, but we only touched on the surface of what I wanted to get talk to you all about. So maybe we can schedule a round two coming up pretty soon, and maybe there will be a little bit more further action with Loretta. Right. And maybe we can talk about that deal specifically. But I do want to point out the way we've talked a lot about relationships this morning. You guys are connected through a mutual friend. We talked about building relationships with a bank, building relationships with a city inspector. I think it all comes from something, Sydney, you said earlier, I picked up on, is that you talk about mobile home parks all the time. Right. And without you doing that, you wouldn't be connected to Tim and the ADPI team. And Tim, I know you like to talk anyway. So, which leads me, I guess, last question. How are y'all finding these parks in the Midwest? Like, I know, so Cindy, you're in Georgia, right?
Yep.
So how are you, and Tim, you're, as you said earlier, you're in Florida near me. So how do y'all find these parks in the Midwest?
Broker relationships.
Hey, there's that word again.
Yeah.
Relationships. Okay.
And we talk about this all the friggin' time, especially in ADPI. So we're about to release a multifamily academy where we walk people through how to invest in both apartment complexes and mobile home parks, to include due diligence and analysis. But we emphasize the importance of not only like your mindset to get to that point, but building meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
It's like people are what make this world go round. I mean, people are what kind of designed the technology that we're using to communicate with each other. It's really important to understand that and be interested in other people and what they're doing and what their goals are. And I love talking to other people. And yeah, I love, kind of sharing with people what I do, but I'm more interested in what they're doing, what their goals are. Because when you do have that bond and that relationship, they're going to be interested in what you do as well.
Yeah.
And like the key is it's a little bit about what you know. It's more about who you know, but it's even more about who knows you. And sometimes it's hard for people to realize it's okay to talk about what you have going on, what you do, what you're looking for, and what kind of value you could bring to the table. And I immediately realized when Sydney and I connected, we got to know each other, and I knew exactly she was the analytical brain that was the numbers data driven piece. And that's why the minute we kind of connected, we had Zoom calls like multiple times throughout the week to say, hey, what's the next step? What are we doing? What are we looking for? We analyzed probably like 12 deals until we finally got one that, a couple that we made an offer on. And then now we're about to be under contract on 2. And that's just in mobile home parks. I mean, there's another owner financing deal that she helped put together for an apartment community that ADPI Capital is putting an offer in on, and she helped structure that owner financing for that too. And we're really excited about that one. That one's going to be a home run. But it's all about just being interested in other people, but putting yourself in environments where other people might be interested in what you're doing. Like RIAs and conferences and going to seminars and getting out there on podcasts and just sharing with your social media platform network. Hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm really passionate about this. I found this and this and this, and now I'm looking at this, and people are going to gravitate to you, and people are going to be wondering, wow, how could I get involved in that? And then they're going to reach out to you, and then that might be a potential partner or something.
That's exactly what happens to me is when you put yourself out there, like Tim is saying, and let people know what you're doing, whether it's through social media or just talking with people, the amount of messages and people that reach out to me and say, hey, I've got a park that you might be interested in, is mind-blowing, honestly. So, I mean, that's a huge lesson for me is, I used to call myself an introvert, like, oh, I don't want to put myself out there.
Me too.
And then I realized that you should never label yourself that because it's a choice. And so I'm choosing to not do that. So now I put myself out there, and it's just, that's honestly how some of our deals that we find them is people seeing you out there doing stuff and sending stuff to you. Like Tim said, they're gravitated towards you.
Yeah. Yeah, I label myself as an introvert. Now behind a computer screen, I'm okay, but when I get into physically get into a crowd, I don't like it. So maybe, and I think you're onto something with it. It is a choice, but
I was surprised, and I'm not gonna lie, I was really proud when you spoke at our RIA. I'm like, man, look at this dude. He's out of his comfort zone.
I definitely grew that night or that month for sure.
That was awesome, man. I love that.
Thank you, sir. All right, so let's wrap it up. Contact information, just so I have it, and I'll post it in the show notes as well. Tim, are you going to give out your cell phone?
I mean, it's I've done that on many podcasts, and it has always resulted in something good. So, but first, definitely connect with me, on Facebook, Tim Kelly. You could find me, and Instagram at the Timothy Kelly, LinkedIn at the Timothy Kelly, and my website is thetimothykelly.com. And for anybody who's military out there, you got to check out active duty passive income if you are not aware of that platform. Incredible podcast. We have a best-selling book, a lot of cool free resources on that website. I'm highly active in the Facebook group. Just go to the Facebook group. And yeah, man, if you just want to shoot me a text or give me a call, I'd be happy to talk to anybody about anything. 847-910-9161. Looking forward to hearing from you.
I'm sitting here writing down your number like I don't have it.
Hey man, it's going. I assume that's going into your show notes. So
there you go. It's a reminder. All right, Sydney, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, definitely Facebook. That's where I do most of my stuff. Instagram, Sydney Barker 1. I just started doing a lot more on LinkedIn also, so you can check me out there. And then if you want to email me, you can do sohopropertiesllc@gmail.com. I'm probably not going to give out my phone number, but y'all can reach me out that way.
Most people don't. Tim's the bold one, right? But like you said, a lot of good things have come from it. So
I ain't scared.
Yeah. All right. Great, guys. Well, I appreciate your time this morning. Again, I didn't touch on half of what I wanted to touch on. So I look forward to having round 2 when we can all make our schedules work and talk more about. I'm really interested in see what happens with Loretta. That'll be a great little conversation to have. So
yeah.
But I really do have to get to work. So I hate to
man.
work, but I've enjoyed our time this morning. Let's do it again very soon.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, have a great day.
See you guys.
Bye.